This is a teaching from Hebrew Shalom Ministries, the Hebrew Alef Bet Introduction. Shalom, Shalom. This is Benjamin. Welcome to Hebrew Shalom. This is part 1 in a teaching series on the Alef Bet, the Hebrew alphabet. One of the major things that God's doing in today's church is He's undoing the Greek thinking and restoring Hebrew thinking to the church. And one of the things that I like to say, I've been teaching Hebrew now for about 20 years, and one of the things I like to say is that one of the best ways, maybe the best way, to unlearn Greek thinking and learn Hebrew thinking is to interact with the actual Hebrew language, preferably with the Hebrew scriptures. There are some really good teachings out there on the difference between Greek thinking and Hebrew thinking. I've done some myself, and as good as those teachings are, the best method by far is to interact with the Hebrew scripture. Just by interacting with and learning the Hebrew, you begin to unlearn Greek thinking and learn Hebrew thinking. There's a well-known Hebrew expression, lo yod, velo kotso shel yod, which means neither a yod nor a kotso of a yod. A yod is the smallest Hebrew letter, and a kotso is the smallest part of the yod. This Hebrew expression is what Yeshua was referring to in Matthew 5:18. The King James translators in the English translate it as jot and tittle, but in the Hebrew, which Matthew was originally written in the Hebrew, it's this expression lo yod velo kotso shel yod. It's the Hebrew expression. What this means is that every detail of the Hebrew language has spiritual meaning. Here is lesson number 1 in undoing Greek thinking and learning Hebrew thinking. Hebrew is a God-given language. This is a crucial and foundational difference between Greek thinking and Hebrew thinking. Greek is man-centered and Hebrew is God-centered. Genesis 11:1 says the whole earth was of one language and of one speech. That language was Hebrew. Maybe you've never thought of this before, but the one language spoken of in Genesis 11:1 went back to creation. Creation was spoken into being with the spoken word. That spoken word was Hebrew. The language given to Adam was the Hebrew language. The thinking in Greek thinking is seen in the theory of evolution. Everything evolved. And this carries over into the science of linguistics. In Greek thinking, scientific thinking behind linguistics, everything developed. Man developed language. The ape man had grunts, and then they developed into some kind of language, and they developed into many languages, and so on, which is directly opposed to what the Scripture teaches. The Scripture teaches that God created language, and God gave language as a gift to man, specifically the Hebrew language. Whenever we teach here at Hebrew Shalom Ministries, we teach from a position of faith. Faith in the Hebrew means to agree with God. So we teach from a position of agreeing with God. Here is lesson number 2 about the Hebrew language. Hebrew is written from right to left. Hebrew is written from right to left. What this means is that we adjust our thinking to the Hebrew and not try to adjust the Hebrew to our Greek thinking. This is lesson 2. The Hebrew changes us. As we interact with the Hebrew, we give up our Greek thinking and come over to God's way of thinking. As it says in Romans 12, verse 2, be not conformed to this world, but be ye transformed by the renewing of your mind. If you study it out, you'll find that Greek thinking and worldly thinking are one and the same. So in Romans 12:2, when it says to give up your worldly thinking and have your mind renewed, that means to give up your Greek thinking. And what's the best way to give up your Greek thinking? Begin to study and interact with the Hebrew language. Because of this, we here at Hebrew Shalom Ministries don't teach Hebrew as an academic subject, something to be figured out. We teach it as a spiritual thing. Shalom, shalom. In the next video, I'll start in with the Hebrew alphabet with the Aleph.